Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing tonight? I hope you're all doing well. It is, let's see, July 3rd. It's the day before the 4th of July. And I think I just heard a firework or moments ago. And I think I read the rules. I went to the city's rules and about fireworks, and I looked at some of the specific rules, and they're strict. They're really strict. I'm not into fireworks at all. I don't ever buy them, and I rarely, I rarely ever see them go off unless they go off like right on top of my place, which is fine. Fine, I don't mind people having fun around. In fact, it reminds me that fun can still be had, which is good. I'm glad there's a few people out there who are optimistic enough for it, and um, I'm appreciating that. But I was just also, like I mentioned, appreciating just how strict some of these rules are. I think when it comes to using fireworks, that um, I think like there's a period of time, like a span that people can use fireworks legally, and it's really short. It's like, I mean, it's like 12 hours, but it's still kind of shortish. It was like from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. or something like that. I think that was what it, and anything outside of that window was not authorized. It's pretty funny. And I was also looking at the permit, the costs, like if you're, you're letting fireworks go illegally, the penalties are pretty high in my city. There's like $1,000 a ticket. So I did not know they were that much. But I think what's happening is that there's just a cultural shift happening where people are just less enthusiastic about fireworks, and I don't blame them. It bothers a lot of people who own pets, and it bothers their pets too. So, and the why it's why they're so bothered is because it bothers their pets as much as it does. And so my heart really goes out, my compassion goes out to all those animals out there who are suffering from PTSD from the fireworks displays. It is a challenge. And if I were a pet owner, and if I were a pet owner, I might be more than willing to buy like earphones or like noise canceling headphones for my animals. Do they even make cat sized noise canceling headphones or dog sized noise canceling headphones? I'm sure that would definitely be a marketable product, especially around the 4th of July. And it's just regretful. Here's the thing: in our culture, and I mean around the world, we don't. I mean, there are some cultures that treat animals well. There are other cultures that don't, and yeah, I think it's widespread, the maltreatment of animals, and it's so regrettable. So regrettable. My heart really goes out to all the suffering animals that are out there. I can really relate to them. I think on some level, fireworks are not necessarily my favorite thing, but they're not the worst thing in the world either. And I don't mind bearing, hearing or watching or listening to fireworks displays. It doesn't bother me. In fact, quite often it makes me feel good. I'm happy about people celebrating, especially when it seems to make so many people happy. I remember I've got some good memories of fireworks, like when I've gone to Disneyland in the past, and they have the big fireworks displays in the evening. Yeah. Now I have my hats off to everybody who lives in Anaheim, California. All those residents who are surrounded, who surround the Disneyland park, basically having to listen to fireworks every single night. And the firework timing is, I don't know how long the fireworks last, but I have a feeling they don't last that long. Maybe it's 15 minutes or something. But I seem to recall that it's kind of late at night. I don't know if it's 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, but it's kind of late. But maybe not. I imagine that they've managed to negotiate with their friends and neighbors in that city of Anaheim so that it's probably every night at 10 o'clock or something like that, or 9:30 for 10 minutes or whatever it is. And somehow everybody, in a way, to some extent, all of their property values depend on Disneyland surviving and thriving. And so, their investment purchases are increased if they allow the fireworks displays to go off. So, I'm supposing that's a big trade-off for a lot of people. Like, they recognize that, like, okay, well, one of the benefits of living in Anaheim is having this incredible appreciation in my property that I've purchased, one of the largest investments I have, and well, that just means I'm going to have to suffer through 15 minutes of fireworks every single day of the year at 9:30 p.m. I don't know what time the fireworks go off, but yeah, that's kind of an interesting fact that I just kind of realized, like, oh man. But that's just the way it is, we all have the things that we endure, and it just happens to be one of those things. Now, I have made an incredible discovery recently. So I discovered that I enjoy writing down on paper using a pen or pencil, like journaling throughout the day. Now, I have journaled before. I've had lengthy journals, but the journaling that I do is less about creativity and fictional stories and poetry and drawing, and more about the facts of the day. I got a lot of to-do lists. I've had to-do lists around me for years, and I love my to-do lists. They're practical, actionable things that help keep my very fertile imagination and creative ideas about what to do next, organized. Because I can think of 100 things to do right now that I that I can get joy out of doing, and I have to choose. And choosing on paper is a really efficient way to make those choices. And so my interest has just been reignited again. Now, in the past, this is kind of my recent history when it comes to journaling, has been transferring everything from paper to digital. And I pretty much did. Nearly all of my lists, everything is digital. Everything's electronic. I've managed to take everything that's on paper and move it to digital. And I've done that over the last few years. And it's working. I've got my calendar. I've got my to-do lists. I've got my notes, like my memos that I take, and everything is really working out really well. And then today I decided to just take out a notebook and start writing stuff down. And how I was really surprised, first of all, at how effective it was. I felt like I knew what I was doing every second of the day. Well, not every second of the day, but every 10 or 20 minutes. I kind of knew what I was doing, and I had a sense about what to do next. And during that time, I really didn't go to any of my digital lists. And here's the thing: I had kind of I have lots of digital lists that I maintain, but in a way, that has been waning a little bit, and I've been sort of freewheeling it. I've just been sort of letting the to-do action items just pop up and leave, and pop up and leave on their own. And actually, that's been working pretty well. Sometimes when I have like 100 things on my to-do list to do in a day, I get a little overwhelmed. And so I actually feel relief when I've forgotten stuff because I need to forget it. But then, of course, you don't always re-remember stuff that you need when you need to re-remember it. Typically, you remember stuff in completely the wrong context, so you can't take action. So That's been an age-old problem, and that I've tried to solve in a lot of ways, but I just haven't done it. But the journaling that I was doing today certainly was extremely helpful, and I liked the boost in productivity that I got from it. I liked the boost in peace that I got from it as well. And really it's just a sense of getting things under control and organizing them. It's just like lassoing these ideas and seeing which ones bubble to the top. And I found it to be fun. And I found I did a lot of writing. So I don't know, maybe my brain was just primed for an activity like that. But anyway, that got me all jazzed. I'm super jazzed. And so I went to the Office Max and I picked up some great pencil leads because I've been experimenting with a mechanical pencil lately. I've had a mechanical pencil and used mechanical pencils for years, of course. And but there's something about the mechanical pencil, or at least pencils in general. See, the problem with real pencils is you just don't have access to a pencil sharpener all the time, unless you carry something with you. And I guess I could do that, but the thing is, the graphite gets everywhere, and so the paper shreds get the wood shreds get everywhere, and that's why I've just had to go to mechanical pencils because it's just less messy, right? Now, every once in a while, I press too hard on the pencil tip, and plink, a little rod of writing lead or graphite just gets tossed somewhere random. But beyond that, I'm happy. I've also tried a lot of different pens, and when people started using gel pens and that gel pen craze arose, I started using gel pens, the colorful gel pens, then the erasable gel pens, and then I came back to the permanent gel pens again. I found that the erasable gel pens just did not work for me because what happens is that all the writing is temporary. At least for me, I was noticing it was temporary. It seems to be like heat activated, I think, where at some point, if it got just too hot or too old, the pink would disappear. And I ended up with lots of notebooks. I know it's just sounds so crazy. That where the ink just totally disappeared. I mean, really, whole notebooks just gone. The ink, I don't know what happened to it. Maybe was it the humidity? Was it the heat? I don't know. Was it just the age? Is there something about the ink? Anyway, I was disappointed because when I take notes, I expect those notes to be there for a long, long time. And I remember taking notes about like books that I was reading. And I was thinking, oh, yeah, this would be great. I love the convenience of being able to erase the pen marking. And man, that was a blinding light of insight. I'm so glad whoever had that idea, I'm glad they had it. But unfortunately, it needs improvement. now, they could have changed the formula since when I last discovered this, and I could be speaking out of turn. But anyway, for now, I'm going to go stay with the gel pens because I think of them as being permanent. One thing about my handwriting too is it's my hands are not the most delicate instruments that allow for finesse when writing, and so I really appreciate the big ballpoint or the big the large diameter ballpoint, I suppose, or gel point. I appreciate the big bold strokes. I'm not really a fine or very fine handwriting person when it comes to pens, and really the big problem is that it's not that I shake. It's just I just don't have the coordination. I don't have the coordination, and very often I'm writing fast. And when I write fast and when I don't have a lot of coordination, if I'm using a very fine pen stroke, it's just really weird to look at. I have a harder time paying attention than if the end of my pen is a little bit massive, and then I've got to sort of use effort to move it across the page. I like there to be a little friction so that I can do a better job of guiding that pen point along the paper with a really thick broad stroke. And the broad stroke is also quite good, is because when I'm using a pen with that broad stroke, I have to make larger letters. Ideally, I'd make really tiny letters, and that would be great because I could write faster, right? But I wouldn't have to go all the way around to make an E. I could just go around and make my E. But I really thrive on the large letters. They're basically, it comes down to legibility. And yeah, maybe I could draw a little faster if I was using like a very fine end of a pen, but the problem has less to do with how fast I can go and more to do with how legible my writing is. And it just turns out for me that bold strokes, giving myself plenty of room to make my letters, helps me make my printing more legible. It's just the way it is for me. Anyway, I also picked up some Moleskine tablets. Now, these are notebooks. Some of them are hardcover, some of them are softcover. And how you say that word, I've gone through many iterations of saying like Moleskine notebooks in a different way. I used to say Moleskine, and I'm not sure. I think is this an Italian word? I'm afraid I never really got the pronunciation of the word. Now, I love the quality of their notebooks. I really do. The hardcover, the soft cover, the Kahir cover, which is just a paper cover, and with the included strap along the side of it. Brilliant. It just works. And then I also love that particular brand of notebook and how they allow me to have like the quadrille lines. They also have what I'd call horizontal lines, and then plain sheets of paper. I can make use of all of that. So I really appreciate having at least the option to choose. A lot of the time I'll go for the quad, just because I'm an engineer at heart. And there's something deep inside my soul that finds pleasure in at any one point being able to make an XY axis. Like without needing a ruler. So I don't know. I'm just really happy every time I find the quadrille graphing paper. And I'm particularly happy when I can find that graphing paper in a non-white format, whether it's like a light green or a light yellow or like a brown yellow tinge. That's great too. I love those different colors. Anyway, you can see I can go on and on about paper and pens and pencils. And there's more to say about that, but I'm going to move on to a different subject because really, do people want to hear me rant and rave about pencils and pens? Speaking of pencils, just for a moment, I did not get the HB hardness pencil lead. I just got the B. And this goes along with when it comes to hardness of pencil lead, I'm pretty variable. I can go back and forth. There are features. I like the B or the softer graphite leads because I can get a nice big dark mark, which I really like. The HB is good mainly because it's a little firmer, it's a little harder, and it allows me to press down a little bit more, use a little more strength. Because sometimes I find myself just being a little, if I have like B graphite, that's something a little bit less hard, I tend to break my leads a little bit more often than I'd like. I don't know. it kind of depends on what mood I'm in the moment. Speaking of moods, I've been reading a lot of wonderful books lately, and I wanted to share that with you. Um, I've started this book called The Sixth Extinction. It's about climate change. It's called An Unnatural History, and it's really the author documents like all the large prior extinction events on the planet through the planet's history, and sort of explains to the audience about when this happened and why it happened and what happened, and she also sort of splits the story into her own adventures as she goes and talks to like planet scientists, and really excited. I actually have not gotten to the sixth extinction yet. Uh, I think she's just now addressing human caused climate change, and I'm just very excited about that. I mean, what an amazing time we live in right now, where the climate is changing so drastically, and I mean, it's we I'm living in an extremely exciting time in the world right now, where there's so much change, the cultural shifts, the political shifts, the uh, geological shifts, the climate shifts. There's so many amazing things happening. There's shifts in technology, like from computers, like information age to AI. I mean, there's probably no more exciting time to live in the world, in the history of the world than right now. Really, it's just it's it's amazing. And what's going to happen between now and the next 5 to 10 years is, I think, in my mind, I'm convinced it's going to determine whether humans as a species survive and thrive or not. you know, the decisions we make today. So it is just, I don't know, it's just a profound time to be alive. Now, there are a lot of folks that are quite pessimistic, and rightfully so. All I share their reasoning, and in many respects there are a lot fewer people who are optimistic, but there are some who are optimistic, and I'm really glad about that. And I actually tend to trend toward, or to lean toward, the optimistic side. But like I said, it's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell which direction we're going. I'm not entirely sure about which direction we're going, because I might hear about a technology that is making progress that's going to save the world, like fusion energy. Like, wow, if we can get fusion off the ground, and they're making spectacular steps forward on that. I mean, I'm like really bullish about the human species, and then I read about like El Nino and La Nina and climate change is trends, and I'm like, oh man, my positivity shifts immediately, saying, oh man, we are heading toward a hurting really quick. And so it's kind of interesting to shift back and forth. When I hear about a new development in AI that just blows my mind, it just totally blows my mind. I'm super optimistic about what's going to happen, and then the very next day, bam, there's various uncertainties show up in the news about one thing or another, and I'm like, oh, things are not going to work out. this is not happening. It's just stunning, really, the amount of how dynamic our planet is right now. Our cultural planet and our physical planet is just so incredibly dynamic right now. I mean, I think about the benefits that the medical field will have when AI really starts getting rolling. And I'm everything from CRISPR gene editing to, I mean, radiology and like X-ray detection and pattern recognition from AI. And I mean, all of the new antibiotics that might possibly be discovered because AI has figured out how proteins twist and turn. I mean, it just It's just it's stunning. It's really stunning. And I think in some respects we are entering a singularity. I think we're there. I mean, we're not in the infinite singularity, but if the singularity were a black hole, we are definitely orbiting that black hole now, in the sense that every day, like every day or every week, something happens that just blows my mind. It's just like blows my mind. It's it's pretty crazy just how rapidly things are changing. Like even just yesterday, I heard about a release of a new video product that's relating to AI, where just with the text prompt, they're making like 60-second movies. It's crazy with quality and fidelity to reality that's unmatched. And then I hear about software development, not by human software engineers, but software development by AI agents and things like this. It just it's just amazing. I mean, it just totally blows my mind. Stuff that didn't exist 2 years ago, some stuff that like no one had a dream of it existing even a year ago. And this stuff is like popping up. It's pretty remarkable. So, oh yeah. So I'm just gonna try to stay alive as long as I can and watch the spectacle, because whatever's happening, it's just amazing. It's just hands down. I've never seen things move as fast as they have certainly over the last 5 years. There's like what happened 20 years ago. It's like a total shift about what's happening now. It's like, what? It's pretty incredible. And then also how culture is moving and shifting. Um, in the past, there always used to be like fashion trends. Well, now we have fashion trends, but they're like micro trends. So that there would be a trend, like a Stanley Cup or something, but the Stanley Cup trend itself only lasts like 30 days or 90 days, and then it's gone, and then it's already over. This is happening a lot, where there are all these amazing ideas that are popping up. They get trendy, and then in the matter of a week or two, they're not trendy. I've never seen culture shift quite that fast. I mean, I could just think of like bell-bottom jeans. Bell-bottom jeans took years to get popular, and then they stayed popular for a long, long time, and then they became not popular anymore. A few years later, and then they got popular again, and that the frequency of those shifts was definitely on the order of years, and now the frequency is a lot higher. I mean, the heartbeat of fashion is really burning really rapidly, or beating really rapidly. So it's just so exciting to see it happen. And the funny thing too is, and it's not funny at all, there's so much change. I honestly don't know how other people are managing. I'm managing great, by the way, because for now anyway, because I don't know, I seem to be well adapted. I seem to be adapting myself pretty well to all the shifts. Mostly I'm doing fine, and I think I can work at an even more speedy output for maybe another 5 or 10 years. But after that, I don't know. I think as human beings, we just all have our limits, and I think I'm going to be very grateful to have an AI agent when they start showing up, because things are going to start going light speed, ladies and gentlemen. The speed of thought, or the speed of trust, or however Bill Gates wants to describe it. Things are going to be moving fast. So I'm glad for that. And hopefully we move through this extinction phase. Actually, I want to move through it so that at least human beings and a great portion of living things on the planet are still continuing to live and thrive. Um, so I do hope that we get past this extinction phase. Uh, the planet always does. And I'm not so sure that I'll be alive when we sort of exit the extinction phase, but I'm hopeful. My fingers crossed is that there are other humans that are alive too, and they're doing okay. We'll see. We'll see. So, The Sixth Extinction is a book I'm taking a look at. There's another book that I just started. It's an audio book. It's called Learned Optimism. And I love the title of this book because it's so necessary. I think a lot of people have gotten, I think they may have some misguided ideas about what optimism is and why it's important. And they may think that it's impractical. And, there are instances where it is. Optimism is a tool. And if you use the tool for everything, it's less effective than it could be. And optimism is a very powerful tool, but it can get in the way, certainly, and it can make your life less sustainable, particularly if you're more optimistic than you ought to be about your own strengths and capabilities to handle a certain situation. when there's optimism, but it's absolutely not justified in the face of infinitely bad circumstances. That's not necessarily the best, not necessarily catering the best outcome. But anyway, so far the book is so in terms of the content. I've read a lot of self-help books, and so part of me is like, well, am I really going to gain from listening to this book? But I always do. There's always something. Really, here's the thing. When I read about like Learned Optimism, or that's actually the name of the title of a book. When I'm reading a book about optimism or gratitude, first of all, it helps me dwell on the subject, which is helpful for me anyway, because I get to reflect on how I'm using this particular trait or strength. And that's aligns with my own personal values relating to personal growth. And that's great. And so I'm learning. And a lot of the stuff, even if it's redundant, sometimes you just need reminding. It's true. Sometimes you just need to be reminded again and again that gratitude is like a key personality trait that is something that's not necessarily genetically determined. Maybe it's only 25% genetically determined, and the other 75% you've got a chance to sort of optimize in your life. It could be any number of benefits that I could gain from. Honestly, I don't know if there's any better way for me to spend my time, because, like I said, there's so much dynamism in culture and the planet right now. It's like we've got cultural volcanoes just spewing, even if they're not real volcanoes, they're cultural volcanoes, just sort of making themselves known in the world. And so we need to definitely keep up our mental fitness as well as our physical fitness. By the way, I went to the gym today, like I do most days, and had a great workout. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I have not been able to put my finger on why I have good workouts and why I have less good workouts. I wish I had some kind of way to just predict in advance, at least if I could do that, or gauge it better, or predict it better. I mean, that would be nice, or just at least have more control over whether I have a really great day at the gym. Turns out I have no idea. I have no idea what causes a good day at the gym. Yeah. If there was just a few switches that I could flip and I get a really feel good day at the gym every single day, that would be great. But for some reason, it just doesn't happen. I don't know. Sometimes I have good days. Sometimes the days are not so good. And I'm just sort of crawling out of there, after a 30-minute workout saying, well, I don't know. I hope I did something today. It may be that it may be completely out of my control. And I'm willing to accept that because there's so many variables. There's like heat and temperature, humidity, there's life circumstance. There's so many things. Brain neurotransmitter. It could be like a history of burnout relating to some exercise or another. Or maybe it's for some reason there's like a line to get on one piece of equipment and not another. And I don't know. I'm just thankful that more often than not, I'd say 80% of the time, I'm having a grand old time at the gym. And that generally it turns out to be one of the highlights of my day. So grateful for that. And it's more than just the highlights. Yeah, it's more than that. I was just talking about practical optimism, and I might have stressed this point before, but when it comes to optimism, my belief is that it requires extra energy. You sort of have to have extra energy to be optimistic in the world. Yeah. If you're going to have like an average attitude about the world, that's really easy to do if you only do exactly what you need to do, right? It's if you want to sort of express kindness over and above how everyone else does it, then you need to sort of have physical mastery over your environment. It's easier if you have stores of emotional and physical energy that you can tap to do a dance, do a jig, jump up and down, run a little bit. If you've got a little bit of energy, first of all, you need the energy it requires to turn up the lips on the front of your face, right? And smile. It takes extra energy. If you didn't have that energy, maybe you wouldn't have a smiling face. Maybe, there's, in order to get excited or interested in something, you need energy to be able to expend. You sort of have to be able to voluntarily sort of take that action, that extra action beyond, the action that a person would have taken normally. Yeah, there's really only one way to do that. And that's for you to have more energy, to have reserves. Yeah, to have reserves of mental, emotional, and physical energy. And the only way to do that is to work out in some respects, because there's the psychological, which has its foundation in the physical. And without that, I mean, yeah, I don't think a person can be adequately resilient without lots of exercise. I just don't see how that can be possible. I mean, here's the thing. If there's a challenge, let's say it's a hurricane or some bad weather, who's going to have more of a positive attitude about it? A person who is underprepared, who has sort of less energy to draw from in his energy storehouse, or the one who has just fully abundant energy to prepare for whatever outcomes are possible. um, yeah, you need the energy to create the better outcomes. You need the energy to draw on, to tap into, to be resilient when you've got setbacks. In order to come back from a setback, you've got to have the energy, the emotional and physical energy to stand again. Yeah, otherwise you get knocked down and you kind of stay down. Really, it's as simple as that. I mean, if you think about it, what part, youth is actually a really good, an optimistic time for a lot of people. And what is unique about youth? Well, what's unique about it is that there's often a lot of play and a lot of exercise, and there's a lot of falling down, and there's a lot of getting up afterwards. It's that energy, that youthful energy, which supplies the optimism that is basically necessary to stay in that optimistic state. Yeah. Yeah. And without that energy, if, in a moment, in a, there's like a moment's hesitation and you're not able to act in ways that you wish you could act, things aren't going to turn out as well. There's going to be less joy. There's going to be less happiness. And so, anyway, which reminds me, I probably should have gone for a run today. I'm still recuperating from my running and walking from earlier in the week. Earlier in the week, I kid you not, I walked about 22,000 steps, which is a lot for me for some reason. That's over 10 miles. And usually I run like I walk 15,000 to 20,000 steps. And it's very rare that I get over 20,000 steps. I mean, I was very close to getting to 25,000 steps, which, it actually sounds interesting. I could very well try to break like a long distance walking record. I'm pretty certain that I've walked more than 25,000 steps in an evening. Usually when I go to like Disneyland or something like that, I'll be walking at least 10,000, probably 20,000 steps or more, just because it takes a lot of walking to get places. I think any trip to Las Vegas is quite similar. As you walk from casino to casino, there are people who are just crushing it and hitting these 30, 40, 50,000 step days. That's just amazing, and my hat's off to those people with that kind of endurance to pull that off. My feet are not that strong yet, but they're getting there. But yeah, looking forward to running this weekend. Usually I've been running about 6 miles at a time, and that's been really helpful. So that's, that's about an hour's worth of running. I think that's pretty reasonable. So let me talk a little bit about some of the books that I'm reading. I'm reading this great Christmas storybook. I love the feeling of Christmas, and I love reading books about Christmas for some reason. I don't quite get it myself, but I just finished a story, part of a storybook about Christmas. I'm going to have to describe it in more detail in future episodes. Anyway, I'm feeling excited reading this anthology of famous writers who are writing about Christmas. So that's good stuff. Oh, I've also learned something new about reading. So when I was in college, I was challenged when it came to reading for a long amount of time. So what happened was I would place my textbook on a flat table, and I would just kind of do like this, and I would just read for hours and hours and hours. Sometimes I would prop up the textbook with other books, and so I'd have it at an angle. And but the problem is that that's a lot of sitting down, and it takes energy to do that. And quite often I'd get tired after some amount of time, a few hours or that kind of thing. And I'd want to change things up. And there was just really not a lot of ways to change things up. So I ended up building like a reading station, and I built it over my bed. Interestingly enough, I got some plexiglass, and I got some shelving on either side of the bed, and I ran the plexiglass between the shelves. And so what I ended up with was a hard surface a clear surface that I could place an open book over. And I could and this was a great breakthrough for me, because I could sort of lie still in bed and do reading at the same time. My eyes would move. It was a little hard to change the pages because I'd have to get my hands up there, take the book off the surface, flip the page, and then slap it back on there. But I managed to do that, and it was actually quite an ingenious invention. And I'm actually pretty proud of it that I pulled it off and made it happen. And I was able to get a lot of reading out of that. And but eventually, I guess I had to move or something. I ended up breaking down that particular experimental design, and I did end up getting and getting excited about these book stands that would prop the book up at an angle. And I still have one of those, and I use it all the time. And I find it very interesting and very fun to use. Now I'm doing something a little bit different. I am lying down, and I found a way that I can sort of lie on my shoulder and read at the same time. I've also invested it in a little tiny book light. It's a book lamp that's really great. It's LCD or LED type light bulb, I suppose, or a light element. And it's battery charged. It charges a battery through a USB port, and I'm finding it's really useful because here's the thing: as I've grown older, it turns out I really like to see the words on the page more clearly, and I like to have a nice bright page to read from. And like I said, as I get older, it sure is nice to have that extra light. It makes reading so much more comfortable. And the letters are less blurry, I'm noticing, and I'm really glad for that. And yeah, so like I said, I found a way that I could lie on my shoulder and prop up the book with other books, and I can read lying down pretty effectively, like while on my side. And I'm really excited about it because it's a new form for me that I could engage in relaxed reading. And I don't know, that's just really exciting to me. Like, wow, I found a brand new way to read while lying down. That's always been kind of like my dream, right? Because when you're sitting or standing and reading, I just get tired. Especially after a few hours go by. And if I can be as horizontal as possible during my reading, that's great. And another tactic I used to improve my reading was I at one point had a Kindle ebook, and that was great for a time. I really appreciated the ergonomics of it. But I became disillusioned by the Kindle ebooks and the technology, particularly when there were technology shifts and changes. And then I found that I had to buy a whole new ebook. I think there were some ebooks that were not supported or something like that. And I was running into some technology problems, like not being able to shift like documents from one electronic gadget to another electronic gadget. I was just having some real troubles. And so I still read using the Kindle software from Amazon, but I don't necessarily read it on some of their custom electronic ebook reading devices. Is because I'm much better reading using the Kindle software on my iPad Pro or a laptop computer or even on my smartphone. I just find that is a lot more satisfying than having a sort of a totally dedicated ebook reader gadget. Yeah, it just turns out that I just got tired of buying really expensive gadgets for my reading. And didn't quite work out. But I still read Kindle books. I love the Kindle Unlimited service. And You know, I love ebooks. And I've been resurrecting using reading more paper books lately, and I've been getting a lot of joy out of that. So let's see. There's also been, I mean, there are so many books that I'm reading right now. I'm I'm also listening to an audiobook that is in a genre that I'm not that familiar with, but I'm really just exploring now, the horror genre. And for me, it's about excitement. Um, and sometimes there's just something that's interesting about the writing. It's a style that honestly I have never really dreamed that I'd be interested in, and but yet I do find it somewhat captivating, and I find it puzzling at the same time. Because let me tell you something about my mind is the polar opposite of horror literature. It's the polar opposite. My mind is focused on ideals. My personality type is very idealistic and creative and bright, energetic. That's definitely, my personality type. And to sort of uh, take time out to read books in the horror um, genre is just so unusual. It's just so different from what I'm normally thinking about that I think for some reason it's compelling. I don't get it. I think it's compelling probably because of how different and alien the writing is from my typical style. And it's kind of exciting too. I'm noticing it's kind of exciting. It's sort of like that why Bram Stoker's Dracula might have been an exciting book to read, which by the way, it's a great book. I've really loved that. And in fact, I've been experimenting and dabbling with the little Anne Rice lately. And I'm liking her stuff too. I really am. And so I'm excited. I never really read Anne Rice before, and so it's really exciting. And then I'm sort of rediscovering Edgar Allan Poe stuff, and also some other writers. And I'm just dabbling into a little bit of Stephen King now. I just there's so many people who are like love him as a writer, and I can see why. I'm enjoying his writing, but I haven't read enough of it to have an opinion about Stephen King right now. Eventually, I'll have an opinion, but yeah, how exciting and how interesting this whole idea of sort of widening my sort of repertoire of books that I'm enjoying reading. I have recently read some romance novels, oddly enough, just modern romance novels, and I'm finding that is nice. I'm liking that. I'm liking the like my mind is it's quite idealistic, and I love sort of reading about these connection stories. And yeah, that was actually a surprise. So the horror genre has been a surprise. The romance genre has been a surprise because most of the time I'm reading technical fields. I'm reading nonfiction stuff like The Sixth Extinction. I'm reading psychology stuff um, that a psychologist would read. And I wouldn't, there are some sort of pop psychology um, books for the masses that I read, but mostly the kind of psychology I read are psychology books that are geared towards actual therapists and psychiatrists and not toward the lay public. In fact, if something is directed toward the lay public, I may not. I'm kind of more interested in it professionally in the subject area as a professional, even though I'm not a professional in the subject area. Um, yeah, I'm sort of like an academic psychologist in that respect, where I would be more interested in the theory, right? The abstract concepts behind the actual um, like the practical advice. I enjoy practical advice as much as anyone, but I also really enjoy hearing about and figuring out the higher level concepts relating to sort of developing psychological theories. And so, anyway, just, and of course, there's also other books I've been going through. I'm reading a book right now using an audiobook format, Bertrand Russell's History of Philosophy, which is this huge tome. I don't know if anyone's ever read it before. I've never read the whole thing. It's long, and I'm so grateful because Bertrand Russell is one of my favorite authors ever. I love Bertrand Russell. If I had a pantheon of artists, authors that I enjoy reading, Bertrand Russell would definitely be in the pantheon. He's like my Zeus, you know. And then there's Hera, and there's all the other gods. But Bertrand Russell is definitely up there as being one of my all-time favorite writers. I just love him to death. And what's also pretty amazing too is just how the longevity of this man. I think he was born in, like, I don't know, the 1850s or something like that, and he made it until like I don't know, I think he made it to like the mid 1900s. He lasted a long time, and I'm so grateful. He was such a prolific writer, and I'm just a big fan of Mr. Bertrand Russell. Love that guy. And why? I don't know. I just love the arcane subject matter. Right now, we're going through the Greek philosophers, and I am absolutely loving learning about Herodotus and Plato and Socrates and all those great guys back then, the beginning of Western civilization. Yeah, Protagoras, all those great guys. So, yeah, definitely excited to go through that history of Western philosophy book. Now, let's see, what else am I going through? I finished a book about grieving from an author that I really love. He's an acceptance and commitment therapist, and if I could only remember his name, but he's one of my favorite authors too. It's kind of funny. He just released a publication from the publisher New Harbinger, which I love. For some reason, I have these like romantic ideas about certain publishers, like Penguin Publishers and New Harbinger, and then there's the Berkeley Press, and for some reason, I don't know what it is about these publication houses. There are some publication houses that I just have these romantic notions about, and I just cannot. Anytime they publish something new, I'm like, oh, I need to get my hands on it. It's pretty funny. It's not about the author, which is so crazy. It's not about the author. It's about the choices that these publishing houses are making or have made in the past. And I'm just excited to read about. Oh, here's another one. Falcon Press, I think it is. There's a series of books about the outdoors, and I am seriously enjoying these works, and I want to read maybe not all of the publications from this particular press, but a good portion of them I am very excited to read after I finish this. I'm reading a book on streams and rivers and the wildlife inside, and I'm just having a blast thinking about geology and natural history. And anyway, that's just a sampling of some of the books I'm reading lately. I tend to read a few books at the same time. Yeah, I usually have like 3, 4, or 5 going simultaneously. So there's really never a lack of things to think about. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Thanks for bearing with me tonight. I hope you have a wonderful night, and maybe I'll see you on the 4th of July tomorrow. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.